Welcome to Botcasters, the podcast dedicated to bringing you the latest news, insights, and expert opinions on conversational AI, chatbots, voicebots, and the future of innovation in this field. We are proud to announce that we are working together with the European Chatbot Conference in Edinburgh, and we will be interviewing interesting speakers. We want to provide independent and objective knowledge for our community, share real-world successes and failures, and connect people with the expertise that they need. It has been a great and fun journey so far. A big shout out to all the experts that were on Botcasters and shared their expertise and vision. Be sure to subscribe to the Botcasters podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and follow us on social media. Hope to talk to you at the European Chatbot Conference in Edinburgh. See you soon. Welcome, Emily Banzhaf.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Emily. I am a conversation designer, content designer, and professional violinist. And I'm currently working as a content designer for a big corporation. And I guess the reason I'm doing the the panel discussion coming up is because I'm also an ambassador for the Open Voice Network, or the Open Voice Trustmark Initiative program. So, yeah.
That explains a tiny bit. Yes. We'll go back to the violinist part because that really interests me. But you're a panelist at the part Legal Frameworks EU AI Act.
Yes.
That assumes that you know a little bit about the European AI Act, right?
Yes.
So now you're an American living in Malmö, Sweden, and you're a professional violinist by origin. And of course, I Googled you and I found some beautiful music played by you and a pianist. I thought I was getting the banjo because it said banjo, but turned out to be a banjo on a violin. But pretty amazing. My compliments. And how does someone playing the violin, I just need to ask, playing the violin ends up in our business?
I think originally what attracted me to voice design in particular, that's kind of where I started my work and getting involved, was the connection to people through sound. And also, I guess in general UX work, there's a lot of problem solving, collaboration, creativity. And I think there are a lot of parallels between music and design that I really felt I could use my skills for. And yeah, it was a really, I'm really happy that I made the switch.
Well, it makes perfect sense because you see a lot of people in the business that are creative in one way or the other. And this is just it's another form of creativity. But it makes perfect sense. But now the link to the European AI Act, we know recently it sort of got the nod that it will move forward and as it is now. So what do you make of it? What do you think of the European AI Act?
So I think it's good that countries regulations are being implemented, laws are being put in place to help create ethical experiences, to help people from, just protect people from the harms that can occur from AI experiences. I guess my concern is that these laws are going to take a while to implement, and just to make sure people are actually accountable for following the laws. And so my work with the Open Voice Network is to create guidelines and standards and best practices for people when they're building conversational AI experiences, so that they automatically are compliant with the EU AI Act and any other regulations that come out. So I think that's my connection.
That makes sense. But we know that when it goes into effect this summer, corporations, we have 2 years to abide by it, right? After 2 years, it's being upheld. Do you think that's enough time? Coming from a position where you actually create solutions for companies?
I think a large ask for a lot of experiences, especially since there are 4 different kinds of AI experiences that they map out in the EU AI Act. So
You mean the
I think
levels,
the
the
levels,
risk
yes.
levels?
Yeah.
The risk
So I
levels, okay.
think being able to align with which one makes the most sense, I think there's a lot more that has to be defined in terms
Can you
of
give an example?
like the model types, the type of experience, how you classify it. There's a lot of gray areas, I think, and a lot of what kind of information you're taking. And there's still a lot that people don't know about it. And 2 years is also, it's a large time, it's a large chunk of time for stuff to happen and for new things to come out too. So one of my other concerns is that some more technology, some more things are going to come out that will impact the EUI Act and compliance as well.
And that makes sense. But companies that have already implemented AI, first of all, I think a lot of companies have no idea that they're actually using AI, machine learning. That falls under the European AI Act. There's a lot of companies use American stuff and it runs in America. And they don't realize that even though it's in America, it falls under the European AI Act because they're using it. So one of the things I see, I mean, 2 years is a lot of time, but if it's already everywhere in your company, well, then 2 years is not that much if it doesn't comply.
Right.
Then
Exactly.
what do you do? So how would you, from your experience, how would you approach um, a project where, or yeah, you get into a company and they already have some form of AI running? How do you approach them and tell them, well, you know, it might not be in compliance with the European AI Act, and now what?
Right. I think it's all about education and awareness and just making sure people know like what technology they're using, how it's being used, how they are implementing it, how it's being presented to users even. There's just so many components that we need to really just create more broader general education about. And I think that's one thing that the Open Voice Trust Mark is trying to do. We've released a course for conversational AI ethical principles. And we're creating a self-assessment so that companies can kind of take a look at, we break down kind of what steps people need to take or how people build experiences, and people can look to that as like a maturity model kind of thing and make sure that they're following the ethical principles.
Is that open source material, or is that you have to be a member?
It should be open source.
So
Yes.
what I would really like, if you want to and you can, and when we post this, that you share some of the materials, like the self-assessment, for other people to use and to understand what's happening.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's still, I think we're still in the process of launching, so it's coming, but we will, as soon as it's ready, we will promote it and share it with everyone.
Or your beta launch and ask for feedback.
Yes.
What about
There you
that?
go.
That is a way to improve, because a lot of the times a lot of the self-assessments in general, the checklists, they work for some companies but not for other companies. If you get the feedback, you understand, okay, we need to change a bit, then you get the best result. Okay, cool, thanks for that already in advance. Now taking one step back, if you look at the European AI Act, and from your perspective, is it gonna further and advance us in innovation, or is it gonna slow us down?
I think that's a tough question to answer because I don't know how it's going to impact.
I know that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, I think it might cause people to take a step back before they build an experience, once they kind of see where their experience falls under the risk category. I don't think it'll stop people from being innovative. I think as long as they follow the guideline or the law, they should be able to be innovative within those boundaries. And I think that's where a lot of like transparency comes into play, and just making sure you get consent from people to use their information for a specific purpose, and making sure they understand what that purpose is. So,
But there's this this thin line where you go from deployer to actually making a model. Mm-hmm. And if you start training a model, and especially with voice, that's important. Right. It's a very thin line, and take us to the boardroom. Like, how would and should boardroom or people in the boardroom take such decisions and assess the risks that come from that?
I think they just have to map out like all the different scenarios. Like, what happens if we can only get data from one group of people? Does that exclude a bunch of others that we want to be participating in this? I think it's just a matter of mapping out what can happen and just making a choice to move forward with what you think is best for users and the business, I guess.
So if I try to take that back to the boardroom, is that about properly strategizing and thinking mm-hmm. things through before you take any decision? Don't take a decision lightly, but especially when it comes to AI. Mm-hmm. Dig a little bit deeper and understand what's happening, and then strategize and put it into the budgets, etc.
Absolutely. I think a lot of the harms that come out are just either unintended consequences from not thinking through an experience fully, or they just don't have the right tools, resources to be able to implement it properly and and do that. So I think the strategy part is the most important, to make sure that you're building what you can that aligns with ethical principles, but thinking about human needs, thinking about everything from the start, and just building out a timeline and realistic expectations about what you can do from that.
And of course, starting small.
Yes. Oh, yes. That's the key.
But now let's say a company has already a lot of AI in place, mm-hmm. and you come in and you see, oh, this is not good. This is not according to the AI Act. Mm-hmm. How do you go about telling the boardroom that their strategizing was not very successful, or they didn't know about the law, and the people who implement the AI didn't know about the law yet, as I know in a lot of companies is the case?
Right. I think, well, you just have to make sure that they hire an ethicist or consult with an ethics firm to make sure they are in compliance, and just make sure they understand what needs to happen in order for them to be in compliance.
Hold on. Yeah. So, but shouldn't suppliers do that?
Yes.
Let me rephrase that. Shouldn't the law imply, or the new law imply, that any supplier understands what he or she is doing, and that they explain to their customers, especially European customers, mm-hmm. That they comply with the law, and if they don't, if it's an explain case, that they can explain what and how, and the company or the board can decide, well, is this acceptable or not? Are we willing to take this risk or not?
Yeah, no, I think that's I think that's accurate, and I think they should have an understanding of and that's one of our other principles, is being able to explain to customers transparently like what they're doing, what they're taking their information for. But if an experience has already been built without those things, I think it's important for them to kind of get educated and really dig in, get the knowledge that they need in order to comply.
So if you don't have it internally, just hire someone or a company that can help you further this. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then what do you think is the best part of the law? From what I understand, you don't know all the little details. Nobody does, and there's a lot of gray area or still unknown how that is going to pan out. But if you zoom out and you look at it, it's like, okay, this is really good. And how do you view that other countries might have slightly different rules, although we see hints that they might do the same thing as they did with GDPR, apply the strictest rules, which are the European rules, so they comply anywhere.
I think
it's a tough question, I know.
Yeah, no. I think the best part about it is that it's in place now and that it's gotten approved. It's kind of a cop-out answer, but I think it sets a standard and it sets a precedent for other people to start thinking about AI regulations more. And it starts the conversation to actually start defining what these things are and just get more detail and go more in depth in the future. So I guess that's the best part about it.
It's the honest answer. And what is your greatest concern with AI? Because you hear a lot of horror stories. Everybody's going to lose their job. Their jobs are going to change. I don't know. We have no control anymore. Blah 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 blah. But I don't know what's true. But what is your greatest concern when it comes to AI?
I think just it comes down to the details and like defining, knowing what it can do and defining the boundaries of where it should and shouldn't be. And I don't know if I trust humans to be able to make the best decisions always. And they're always going to be bad actors. Like, we've seen like with the Taylor Swift stuff and
deep fakes.
Yeah, exactly. And then also with art too, it's kind of taking over, and it's not great. Yeah,
you're a musician. Basically, with AI, I could make you, well, not I, but the technology could make you obsolete.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I do think the way it is right now, I think eventually people will kind of get tired of it, and there is a difference between the music people make and the AI music. And AI, unless you're like really, really tweaking it or modifying it so that it comes out the style you want. Like if you're just doing a plain prompt or anything, it's going to all sound the same eventually. So I think being able to distinguish between the human aspect of art and then the AI, I think is, yeah.
That is a beautiful bridge between something we talked about a little bit earlier. Because if you look at a beautiful conversation, right? And if everybody starts prompting AI in the same way, then every conversation is going to be the same in a chatbot or voice or whatever. Now, what is your take on that? The mix of technology and the human in the loop to make that beautiful conversation, yet I would say functional conversation, because a beautiful conversation that leads to nothing is actually a shitty conversation, right, in my opinion. Even though it's beautiful with beautiful words and sentences, it makes no sense because people come to a chatbot or a voice bot to get something done, usually. Right. Get a process done or whatever, right?
Yeah, so I think that's where conversation designers come in. And I think that's where you really, really need to use a conversation designer for every AI experience, because you can... AI on its own will not just do what you want it to do. It's going to go off, especially generative AI, like the name generative. It's not supposed to be confined into, specific guardrails. And no matter how hard you try, someone's always going to be able to get through. So being able to kind of use a mix even of just like design and the LLMs where they make sense. I think I think the great part about it is like being able to broaden out the conversation in terms of context and remembering things. But you still need a designer to really go through and make sure that it's a well thought through experience and that people are actually getting the help that they need.
Is that then also a message to all the conversation designers out there that, in principle, they need not worry about losing their job if they get acquainted and a certain expertise level at how to handle AI, and basically that goes for a lot of jobs, that you will lose your job if you don't know anything about generative AI or LLMs or whatever you want to call it. Is that sort of the message behind it?
I think it helps to have AI. To me, AI is another tool in your toolkit. So being able to talk or being able to use it or know how it works, I think is going to be crucial, especially in the future, and especially because it's gone so mainstream. I think maybe if ChatGPT ever didn't come out, it would still be another
too
tool.
late.
Yeah, exactly. But now that it is in the mainstream, now that it's got people's attention, now that companies are really investing in it, I think it's going to be crucial in our tool set toolkit to be able to work with it and to strategize like when makes the most sense to use it.
Actually, I agree with you. To wrap this up, what would be your message to conversation designers and UX designers in designing conversations that are currently out there are looking at AI and I wouldn't say are worried, but it's sort of are a bit lost, and you see a lot of people are lost currently as to where this is going. Also because customers are demanding it and they have no idea what they're asking for.
Exactly.
So what would your advice be to them? A takeaway or a short thing that they can hold on to? It's like, oh, this helps.
I think just embrace it, learn about it, learn about the different tools, play around with it, see what works, see what doesn't, and if you can use it in your job to help people, that's great.
And give me one example how they could practice or use it besides going to Bart or ChatGPT, just typing in questions and experimenting with prompting. That's one thing, but from a professional standpoint,
I think actually try using the tools in your everyday life, and even for conversation designers, going to tools like VoiceFlow and just trying to create a bot and just have fun with it. Like do something, whatever you want, and just try to
So make a bot, basically making a bot that you would use. Right. Using AI, which makes your life easier, having it do something.
Exactly.
Whatever it is.
And knowing
turn on the light.
Yeah. And if it makes your life easier, it'll probably make other lives easier as well. So just even sharing what you know too is helpful. Because a lot of people, me personally, I feel like I'm so behind. I feel like I still don't know anything about AI. And
yeah, that really does well in a podcast about your expertise.
Right.
Great.
No, there's so much information out there. There's a lot of noise, and it's hard to pick out kind of what's worth reading, what's not.
I call it the diarrhea on LinkedIn and on the amount of articles that come out, which are useless. Sorry to say, just theoretical mumbo jumbo that in practice doesn't work or hasn't been tried.
Right.
It's unbelievable. You cannot keep up anymore.
Exactly.
And it's very hard to distinguish what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. And I think that you mentioned just one point, and then to close this, you said it should make your life, but also the customer's life easier, or the customer of the customer. And I think that's what it should all be about. If it makes your life easier and you can do it ethically, then perfect.
Exactly.
And if it can't, if it becomes annoying, then you shouldn't use it, or not yet.
Right. Exactly. So it's just making those decisions.
Yeah, but it makes perfect sense. And if the AI Act helps us set some guardrails and do that ethically and safely and include or make sure no one is excluded for the wrong reasons, then it helps. And I hope people or companies will start understanding it and understanding the positive implication, not just the negative implication, but especially the positive ones.
Right.
I think it could move us ahead as the EU.
Definitely.
Okay, Emily, thank you very much. I enjoyed this, and I hope to see you in Edinburgh.
Yeah, hope to see you too.